libraries because we're trying to, our motto at DPS Advisors is educate and empower people so they can make better decisions with their hard-earned money. We're going to go over a bunch of topics tonight. You know, what are the main topics where, you know, people are worried about who are about to retire or are in retirement? When do I turn on Social Security? How do I pay the least amount of taxes on my IRA or 401k? How do I invest in the markets when I'm close to retirement or I'm in retirement? Or if I have a lot of years to go before retirement, what should we be doing? So we're going to hit a lot of those topics, but I'll give you a little brief background on me and who's here. So if you were paying attention to the show, my name is John Papa. I'm the president of DPS Advisors. I started this practice with my dad 39 years ago. We started Diversified Planning Strategies. He was a life insurance agent. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was graduating college, and I went and worked in the agency with him at Guardian Life and started selling life insurance, which I hated. So I always liked the finance side of it. So I started running, you know, investment plans. He was doing life insurance, I was doing investments. We merged our practices together early on and had a father-son practice for a really, really long time. I have my son Luke here. Luke Papa, he graduated University of South Carolina a year and a half ago and has been working with us. My brother-in-law Ted Fiore, he's been in the financial services field for a long, long time. He's a little younger than I am. We're all licensed fiduciaries. Throughout this presentation, I'll explain to you what that actually means, okay? So we started this practice, my dad and I, and when he passed away a few years ago, he's got 4 grandkids, my son and my daughter and my niece and nephew. Nobody else wanted to join the business. It was just me and him. You know, he missed out on when Luke gave me the call his senior year in college and said, I think I want to come into the business, Dad. I was like, okay. I'm kind of riding it out a little bit. And I said, well, let me come down and explain to you how this is going to work, because it's not going to be you just coming in here and I'm handing you over just a practice. That's not happening. My father didn't do that with me. You know, he said to me, you got to go make it on your own. I'm not giving you a penny. And that's what I kind of said to Luke. I go, it's very hard. You got to go out and attract new clients. We got to do events like this. They're not easy to do, to get up in front of people and talk and speak. You got to learn how to do it. You got to learn how to become a financial advisor. So he joined the practice. We started, you know, doing these campaigns and marketing. We do a TV show, a radio show. We do live events. We've been asked to speak across the country to different advisors. How are we growing our practice so well in the times, in the rocky, volatile market times? So that's kind of our little bit of background. We have a long history of being in this business. Most of my clients are age 50 years old and above. We do have some younger clients, because as Luke's come in the business, we have some younger people. I work with my clients' kids and their grandkids. So we do have younger people in our practice as well. So we know what to do for younger people as well. So tonight, I want you to sit back. If you heard the show, I talk a lot about everything being stress-free. This stress-free environment, we're not selling you anything. We're just going to talk about a bunch of different topics. We have a pretty full room, so I'm not going to take questions throughout this presentation, but we're going to be here afterwards. I won't leave until I answer everyone. So you have questions, we gave you a notepad and a pen. Jot them down. We'll answer questions, you know, when the presentation's over. I'll stay here as long as I have to answer every question that you have, okay? So with that, you know, why'd you accept the invitation? I'm gonna skip this video just so enough of the videos. We're independent licensed fiduciaries. What does it actually mean? That means we have your best interest over our own throughout the whole financial advisor relationship. I'll give you an example. I use Home Depot as the analogy. So let's say you walked into Home Depot, or you talked to your advisor and you said you needed a hammer to hang a picture in your wall. And that advisor sold you a 20-pound hammer. That's a suitable recommendation. You asked for a hammer, they sold you a hammer, and you go on your way. As a licensed fiduciary, I have to do some further investigation. I have to bring you into Home Depot. Let's go to aisle 12. We have hammers from 2 pounds to sledgehammers. Let me ask you some questions about your health, any heart issues, orthopedic issues, any medical things I need to know about, and let's find a hammer that you can actually use. So the standard of care for a fiduciary is up here. If I sold you a 20-pound hammer in a suitable recommendation, I'd probably get fined for that if you filed a complaint, because I didn't do my due diligence in that situation. I wasn't worried about your standard of care. I just sold you a product, and that's not how a fiduciary works. So if you get one thing out of tonight, you should know that you need to work with a licensed fiduciary, okay? There's only two types of fiduciaries who are licensed: a certified financial planner, CFP, or a registered investment advisor, RIA. We're each registered investment advisors. My firm, DPS Advisors, is licensed with the SEC and FINRA as a registered investment advisor. So if you go home tonight and ask your current advisor, hey, are you a licensed fiduciary? And they say yes, then great, come back with the next question. Which kind? If they don't say CFP or RIA, unfortunately, they're not telling you the truth. So you need to work with a licensed fiduciary. They have your best interests over their own at all times. So I've been on a show on Fox Business. There's a show every Sunday at 2 o'clock called The Wealth Council. I'm one of the advisors. They gather advisors from across the country to talk about financial issues in retirement. I've been asked to speak. I think I'm on 5 or 6 episodes, going out in June to record more episodes of The Wealth Council. I've been on MSNBC and CNBC. Anybody hear of a show called The Worldwide Exchange on CNBC? It's broadcast in 90 countries. I was on that show and talked for a half hour about retirement planning and how do you deal with people who are 60 years old and above. Because all Wall Street cares about are the young people. They don't want to deal with retirees. I do a TV show that you were watching today. We're on News 12 New Jersey every Saturday morning at 8 o'clock in the morning, rebroadcast at 8:30 at night. And every other Sunday, we're on WPIX Channel 11 at 6:30. Our radio show is on WOR 710, 2 o'clock in the afternoon for an hour. All my shows are the same, the Papa Report. I'm not that smart on figuring out how to change names and stuff, so. A couple other things. A licensed fiduciary, 39 years. These are the show times. I know this is tough to read. The lighting in here is kind of tough, but I gave you our show times. I wrote a book called Avoiding the Retirement Traps. That was more about people who are in retirement or close to retirement. I'm writing a second book right now called The Intelligent Investor. It incorporates what are young people supposed to do. So they're not in the same problems that we have, when you're older. So we're writing that book, probably about halfway done with that. So the first topic we're going to hit tonight is Social Security. Anybody people have questions about that? Like, I don't know, when do I turn it on? What are the rules? The rules are changing constantly on Social Security. So Ted's going to come up, talk a little bit about that. If you have questions, jot them down on your notepad, and we'll answer them afterwards, okay?
Thank you, John. Welcome, everyone. Interesting day in the markets, as John said. I am, although I've been in the industry for over 30, 35 years, the new guy to the firm. So I am the lucky one who gets to talk about Social Security. And they asked me to do that in 10 minutes. So there are over 2,700 rules when it comes to Social Security, the Articles of Social Security. And the Social Security Administration itself in 2018 conducted a study, and they determined that there are over 9,000 different ways for a married couple to file Social Security. So I have to talk about 2,700 rules and 9,000 ways to file in the next 10 minutes. So wish me luck. There are really two questions people have when it comes to Social Security, right? The first one is, will it be there for me when I need it? And the second question is, when is the best time for me to file it? So the first one, will it be there for me? The answer is yes, but. And the second one, when is the best time to file? The answer to that one is it depends. So we're going to give you a lot of solid advice today. Yeah, yes, but, and it depends. All right, so a little bit of background. Social Security was enacted in 1935, 90 years ago by FDR. And they literally just picked a random age of 65 years old as what's called the full retirement age. They figured 60 was too young, 70 was far too old. Let's go with 65. The interesting thing was, though, in 1935, the average life expectancy was 59 and a half years old. So they were expecting people from their 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s to pay into the Social Security fund, but not live long enough to collect it, right? So here we are 90 years later, All they've done is increase the full retirement age from 65 to either 66 or 67, depending on what year you were born in. But life expectancy now has gone from 59 to 77. So people are living a lot longer than they were. You think about baby boomers, you think about Generation X and Generation Y, right? We had 70 million people collect Social Security last year. So for the first time in the last couple of years, we now have more people collecting Social Security than are paying into the system. So the trust fund itself that's been accumulating for the last 90 years is now getting depleted. More people are taking it out, right? It's what's called a pay-as-you-go system, which means as Ted Fiore is paying into Social Security fund, right? If you ever look at your paycheck and you either see Social Security tax or FICA, people are always like, who's this FICA guy that I'm giving 6.25% of my income to? FICA stands for the Federal Insurance Contributions Act, and that's the money that goes directly into the Social Security fund, right? So you have more people taking it out, you have less people putting it in. As I'm paying into the system, they're not putting my money aside for me when I decide to claim. I put it in, I pay it in, whoever is collecting that year is taking my money out, all right? So they're estimating that by the year 2034 or 2037, somewhere between there, depending on who you talk to, the trust fund itself is going to be fully depleted. So you may hear some talk about Social Security is going bankrupt. What that means is the fund is potentially going to be gone, but people are still contributing to the system. So if Congress doesn't do anything between now and then, what you would have expected to collect 100% at your full retirement age, you're more than likely to get about 80% of what you would have gotten. Now, we think between now and then, Congress is going to do something to preserve Social Security, right? Every political party, whether you're whichever side of the aisle on, right, their job is to get reelected, to get their party elected. So we think it's a bad political strategy for the, people have an expectation. It's not an entitlement. It's not that government's giving you money. It's money that you've put in. If you're expecting to get 100% and you're only getting 80%, Congress hopefully will do something. They can raise the maximum wage. So if you see here the Social Security wage tax on the right side of that, for 2025, the maximum wage tax was $176,000 and some change. And what that means is if you made $200,000, if you made $500,000, if you made $1 million this year, for purposes of Social Security, they're only going to take out that 6.25% up to $176,000. No Social Security taxes are going to be taken out above that threshold, okay? So they can certainly raise that, which is a strategy you'll see in 2024. They raised it already. So, we think it will be there. We think Congress is going to take action between now and then. And if worse comes to worse, it's 80%, not 100%. So we think it will be there for you. It's going to be in Congress's best interest to make sure that it is, particularly for all the people who've been paying in and who are going to be paying going forward. All right? Luke's going to make a lot more money than I did, so hopefully he can build up the trust fund for me. So the second question is, when can I file, right? So hopefully, again, everybody knows what the full retirement age, depending on what year you were born, it's going to be either 66 or 67, and there are a few months in between there. I don't want to get too far into the weeds. But if you file, the minimum age is 62 years old, right? If you file at the age of 62, you're going to get 75% of what you would have gotten had you waited till your full retirement age, okay? There's also an added benefit. If you wait until maximum age of 70, you'd get 132% of what you would get for your full retirement age. Now, there's no benefit whatsoever to wait after your age of 70, right? 71, 72, there's no additional increase that they're going to give you for waiting after that. Between the age of 66 or 67, depending on what your personal full retirement age is, they give you delayed retirement credits for those 3 or 4 years of 8% a year, right? And that's at a time where you probably want to be a little conservative with your portfolio. If you have days like today, you know, since the beginning of the year, last number of days. You know, if you do that, you want to make sure that you are taking into account when you're going to take it, if you're healthy, right? It's weird for financial services professionals to tell you to go talk to your doctor, right? But hopefully they have as good an idea as anybody else what your health is like. If you have a long life expectancy. The good news here is everybody who's in this room, the fact that you're here can expect for men to live to 84. For women, it's 89 years old, unless you have some underlying medical condition that's going to say otherwise. So talk to your doctor, right? Statistics show the fact that we're all here is good news for us, right? But you need to plan you want to make sure that you're not outliving your assets. Think about it, right? When Social Security was founded 90 years ago, right, people were living to 59. Here we are, people are living to 77. Here, people are going to live to 84. People are living 30 years in retirement, okay? So you need to understand for your own particular situation, it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. It's one size fits one. You have to think about whether you're married, right? They kind of call our generation, if you've ever heard the term, the sandwich generation. So a lot of us are taking care of parents who are elderly while we're potentially taking care of children who could be, you know, who need financial help. So we're kind of sandwiched in between. So are you married? Were you divorced? Were you divorced and married for 10 years? Because that could impact the amount of Social Security that you can take, right? Are you still working? What age are you working until? What is your income? What's your tax bracket? So all things to talk to your accountant and talk to your financial advisor about. Could you go back to the screen 1 second? You're going to see one other thing. COLA on the bottom left, right? It's not a cold, tasty beverage that we all enjoy. It stands for cost of living adjustment. So each year, for the last 20 years, it's about 2.6%. 2022, 2023, the increases went up to 5 and 8%. Interest rates were really high. Cost of living, the CPI, or the Consumer Price Index, was very high. But last year it came down. This year it's going to be about 2.5% as well. We'll go to that other slide now. So real quickly, we want to just give you kind of a mathematical idea of how you're going to do your analysis, right? We're going to go with a standard couple. Ron and Nancy are clients. We're changing their names to protect the innocent. But assuming Ron is 60 and Nancy is 58 years old, if they both at 60, if they both take their cumulative benefits starting at age 62, which is when they first can take it, you'll see together that they took out $1.7 million over the course of the time that Ron lived to 85 and Nancy lived to 90. Okay, that's if they elected to take it at 62. Now, if they took it at 67, which is the full retirement age for both of them, you'll see that Ron and Nancy collectively took $1.9 million. And that's about $280,000 more. Again, they both died at the same age of 85 and 90, but the fact that they were taking a much higher monthly benefit, even if it was a shorter period of time, they still got a lot more money. And then you have, if they waited to 70 and they got those delayed retirement credits that I just mentioned, they would have gotten $2.1 million. It's a compressed period of time, but you can see the monthly benefits are so much significantly higher that it's almost a $400,000 difference for them over that course of time. So again, you do not want to outlive your assets. The statistics are showing that Social Security, when it was enacted and now, is supposed to be about 40% of your income in retirement, but 30% or 40% of women are relying 100% on Social Security, and 30% of married couples are relying 100% on Social Security. So the fact that you're here tonight, hopefully this is one of the important topics that you're thinking about in retirement, and you're talking to advisors your tax accountants, to figure out for you individually what is the best thing for you to do when it comes to filing. I don't want to take up, I know I'm on the clock, so I'm going to give it back to John, and then Luke will speak.
Thanks, Ted. So, quick question or two real quick about Social Security. I'll answer one real quick. Yes,
Do you
sir.
agree with some commentary from the news that the Social Security is the biggest Ponzi scheme?
No. No, because every paycheck I get, I see my money getting taken out, so I don't know. And I also have relatives that collect it, so I don't know. It could be,
That's right,
but,
Ponzi schemes go totally default.
Right.
It's just interesting, the numbers you showed.
Yeah.
It seems like some similarity.
unless,
I'm not finding
the only way it's really gonna go away is if everybody in the United States stops working. And everyone retires at the same time, there's no income to collect the FICA tax. Then it's gonna go bankrupt, ladies and gentlemen, just so you know. That's the only time. Other than that, it's a political ball going back and forth just to make headlines. Okay? Yeah, one more.
Trump says he wants to make tips and Social Security non-taxable.
I love it. When it happens, we'll figure out how to plan on that.
But that is something that they've changed, right? At what point Social Security wasn't meant to be
Social
taxed?
Security, yeah, was
Right.
not taxed when it was first came out. And
So that's
doesn't
been
matter
changed.
What side of the aisle you're on. Reagan started taxing it first, up to 50% of the benefit, and then Clinton took it to 85% of the benefit. So it doesn't matter what team you're on. We both invaded and taxed it. So, yeah, that'll be great. And what part of our job is when that stuff happens and gets enacted, how do we adjust our conversations and things like that? So, yeah, that's great. That'd be great. It should be not taxed. So, before we get into this, Ted brought up a good topic about with the markets, and I kind of hinted at it a little bit before. We have a whole section that Luke's going to handle on market volatility. So be remiss to not address what happened today in the markets and what you're supposed to do or not do today, in a day like today in the market. So we're going to hit that. I don't want you to think we're just blow it over and here we are doing a financial seminar and not talking about the fact that the markets went down 4 or 5% today. So we're going to hit that in the market volatility section. I'll address what I think is going on and what how we would handle that. I will say to you today, we have 325 families that we serve. You know how many phone calls I got today? 2. And we'll talk about that. We'll talk about why is that, all right? So, income tax and you, what the heck does that mean? Okay, this is the section we're going to talk about, where it's qualified plans. How many people in here, besides their house, or probably the same amount as their house, their largest investable asset is their tax-deferred retirement plan? 401k, IRA, 403b, 457. I need show of hands. Almost everybody in this room, you have a retirement plan, tax-deferred? Okay. Almost everybody in this room has that plan. And we were sold a bill of goods back in the day. Put money in this thing, you're going to get a tax deduction for your contribution, you're going to be in a lower tax bracket later on when you take the money out. Everybody heard that? Okay, I can tell you out of the thousands of people we've met in our office, nobody's in a lower tax bracket, especially living up here in the Northeast, right? We're not in a lower tax bracket. So where do you think tax rates are going to be going? You all have a tax deferred account. Where do we think tax rates are going to go? Our country's $36.5 trillion in debt. We don't make any money. We don't make any products, we don't make any stuff that we sell for a profit. The only thing we do to generate money is collect taxes. We're $36.5 trillion in debt right now and rising every second of every day. There's a great website, I don't know if you've ever gone on it, usdebtclock.org. And don't look at it long because you'll get a headache. That's how fast the numbers are moving. It's insane. We spend, I think, $1 trillion or $2 trillion on interest only every year on our debt. The government, all they can do is raise taxes. Now, I mentioned Reagan before. Reagan was an actor before he became president, right? Back in the day, he was a cowboy actor. He made a movie in like the 50s, I believe it was. And he got paid $1 million. And you know how much tax he paid on that $1 million salary in the 50s? The highest tax rate back then, it was 90%. So Ted made a point before about politicians, their one job is to get elected, right? Doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. I don't care, Republican, Democrat, Independent, whatever. Your job is to get reelected. So if I went out there and said, we're going to take your income taxes and we're going to make you people pay more income taxes out of your pocket, Am I going to get reelected? Probably not. But if they're going to say, wait a minute, we're going to tax all the rich people. We all heard that? We're going to tax the rich has to pay their fair share. You know who the rich are? The people with the 401k, 403b, who worked your whole life. You know, I'm middle class. I'm not a rich person. My 401k is my biggest asset because I listened to that story back then, okay? If they raise taxes on your retirement accounts, do you think that'll go through? They'll get reelected on that because they're taxing the rich, right? When I first started in this business in the 80s, if you remember, if you took a distribution from your IRA or 401k, there was not just federal tax and state taxes, there was also an excise tax. You're the first person in like the last 2 months that remembered that. You remember that? There was an excise tax, a third tax. So if you're sitting there thinking, my biggest asset that I have is my 401k or IRA, what are we supposed to do about that, right? And we all think tax rates are going up. That's what we said. Everybody agreed here. Taxes are going to go up, whether it's taxes on the plans themselves or income taxes are going to increase, okay? And you're going to pay more in taxes. It's so important for planning that we do with our clients. We built a website called dpstaxbill.com. And you can go to that website, plug in your numbers, plug in your age, the balance you have, your expected return on the portfolio on the IRA or 401k, the tax rate you think you're going to pay, and it'll calculate for you the income taxes that you're going to pay. Because I'm going to go over an example of what I'm talking about and seeing the amount of taxes that you're exposing yourself to in these qualified plans, and why you younger people need to do Roth now, okay? So, let's talk a little bit about that. What are your options, right? Like I sit here and do nothing. I'm sure you've been to other events. This isn't the first invitation you guys came to. You probably went to one. Is your first? Where you came here to the Parsippany Library, no food, no water, no pens.
That's why I picked
This is
it,
your
'cause
first
there
one
was no
too?
free food. I thought,
These
maybe
people
will be
get
interested.
invited to steak dinners at Ruth's Chris. We do luncheons at Seasons 52. You came here to the Parsippany Library. It's hot as heck in this place, right? I'm glad. I'd rather talk to you people that don't want the meal, that want to know about what's going on in their stuff, right? So I'm glad, and good luck to you, Tom. Congratulations that we're your first one. And hopefully you won't have to go to any other ones, right? So where do we think tax rates are going to go? So we go to these things. Dealing with people who are 50 years old and above, the hardest thing for them to do is change. Like, it's just easier to do nothing, right? I just hit the easy button. I don't want to make any changes. I got my 401k. I have $1 million in it, whatever the balance is. That's what you think the balance is, but you probably have $600,000 of that money because $400 is going to go to the IRS. So if you're planning on retiring on $1 million and thinking that's going to be your income stream, it's not. It's probably 60% less than that number. So we're going to go over those things. So you can do nothing, or you can pay a little tax now and do some tax planning strategies. So everybody here raised their hand. They said they all have a 401k IRA. How many people's current financial advisor has sat them down and said, hey, we have to do a tax planning strategy. We have to go over the taxes that you're going to pay on your distributions. We have to figure out a way to pay the least amount. How many people have had those meetings with their advisors? None? How many people have got that conversation phone call from their accountant? Are there any accountants in the room? Because I might say some things about an accountant right now. I don't mean it personally, but accountants are probably the worst tax planning people we can talk to. Because all they're focused on is how to decrease your taxes in 2025. They don't care about 2035, 2040, 2045. Our job as your fiduciary advisor is to care about that. Because the objective is, the tax code book's 20, 30,000 pages. It's there so we pay the least amount of taxes, not the most. And if your accountant and your advisor are not talking to you about tax planning on your largest asset that you guys all said was, you're making a huge mistake. You're making a huge mistake. So I'm going to tell you why. There are tax efficient planning options. Roth IRA, Roth 401k, Roth is tax free. When Roth first came out, it was in the 90s, late 90s. We went to every one of our clients and said, hey, there's this new thing coming out now. It's a Roth IRA. You convert your regular IRA into it, and you have 3 years to pay the tax on the conversion. 3 years. Now you have to pay the tax the next year on the conversion. We couldn't get anybody to do it. It's just, they didn't want to change. Older people don't like change. So we couldn't get anybody to do it. Probably the biggest mistake of their financial life, right? Because I'm going to give you an example of a retirement plan. So let's say you have a $500,000 IRA, you're 65 years old, you have 8 years to go till required minimum distribution starts. Does everybody know what the required minimum distribution is? A RMD? At 73 years old, you have to start taking money out of that plan. Whether you need it or not, they don't care, okay? So you have 8 years to go. Your advisor's not talking to you about tax planning strategies. Your CPA is certainly not talking to you about tax planning strategies. And let's say you just go and do nothing, number one, okay? In 8 years, at a 7% return, nothing crazy. I mean, money markets are paying 4.25% today. So if we can't do 7% as your advisor, you should fire us, all right? So you earn 7% on that IRA for 8 years. That IRA is now worth $860,000. Now you're 73. You have to take a distribution out. That distribution is $34,781. You have to pay income taxes on it. And like Ted said before, we're living longer, right? And let's say you live to 90. You would have taken out, so the next year is $37,000, then $39,000, then $42,000, and it gets higher and higher and higher. And let's say at 90, you pass away. You would have taken out of your IRA $1.1 million in distributions. And let's say we don't even change the tax bracket. 24%, today's tax bracket. Nothing crazy. You're going to pay $265,000 in income taxes on those distributions. You know how we got that? It makes sense? You know how we got the number? You take the distribution out, you got to pay 24% tax. You add up all the distributions. Yes, sir.
What about the state? You got to pay tax.
We just mixing it in. Federal and state combination tax rate's 24.
Low, right?
I mean, you could make up the $390,000 married couple
24,
and be
yeah,
24.
marginal tax rate.
So yeah, that's not too bad.
Thank you.
But that doesn't end the story. There's still at 90 $1 million left in that IRA. That's going to go down to your kids and grandkids, right? Who you want to give that to. They have, it's called an inherited IRA. It used to be when I inherited an IRA, you can take those payments out over your lifetime. Well, a couple of years ago, the IRS changed the rules and said now you have to take that out over a 10-year window. And you have to take money out every year in that 10-year window. So, I'm a 45-year-old son, and I have 2 kids of a married couple. I inherit $1 million. I get 500. My sister gets 500,000. I'm 50 years old in my prime working years. I now have to take out $50,000 of my parents' inherited IRA and add it to my income. No choice. Let's say that puts them into a 30% tax bracket, because this is down the road a little bit. They're going to pay taxes of $309,000 because their distributions are going to total about $1 million something as well. So on that IRA that you're sitting on right now at 65 years old, it's worth $500,000. And if you do no planning, you and your family are going to pay taxes of $575,000 on all those distributions. So that's if you do nothing. Your current advisor's not telling you anything about it, neither is your CPA. That means every one of you in here should be, at the end of tonight's session, making an appointment to come say, what could I do to make my stuff better? Just learn about it. And not saying you're going to do it or not, but at least investigate whether it's better for you or not. What if I can show you a way to get the same amount of monthly or yearly income in those distributions, but you and your family only pay taxes on $626,000 of distributions, or $150,000. Would you be interested in seeing how that works? Would you rather pay $575 and do nothing, or at least investigate the opportunity to reduce the taxes to me and my family down to $150,000? We do it every day at DPS Advisors. Tax planning strategies on qualified accounts is probably the biggest thing you should be worrying about in retirement. Tax rates are only going up, they're not going down. They're going to attack these things. Politicians will get reelected by just saying, we're going to tax the rich and tax the 401ks and the IRAs. They'll get away with that. And that's going to affect every person in this room, me included, if you're not going to investigate and or implement some other strategies to do tax planning. Quick question about that.
Yes, I thought the rich taxable income was anything over 500,000. I didn't know it included IRAs and.
Well, we're talking, ma'am, we're talking about income taxes. Estate taxes is totally different. That's a totally different number. Okay? So I gave a statistic before. So a person who is single, a single filer, you can take $197,000 and $300 in income and still be in a 24% tax bracket. Married couple can make $394,600 and still be in a 24% tax bracket. Do you think about the term of a tax deferred account? It's common sense. If I have a tax deferred account, do I want to pay taxes on that account when the tax rates are the lowest they're going to be in my lifetime? Or do I want to take the money out when the taxes are going to be the highest they're going to be in my lifetime? When would you take it out? When's that? Right now. Right now. So investigating whether doing tax planning options is something that should be number one on your list. And we do it every day in a stress-free environment. We'll run your numbers, show you what your options are, and you decide, what's better for you. My job on your team is to educate and empower you so you can make better decisions with your hard-earned money. That's on our whiteboard in our room. That's my dad and I created that slogan 38 years ago. Been saying it ever since. You heard me say it on the TV show. I say it all the time. That's what our job is. Yes,
I have
sir.
a question.
Sure.
So at 73 years old, what's your recommendation? Is to have all in a Roth IRA or have 50% in an IRA and 50% in a Roth IRA at that age? What is your
It
recommendation?
really depends on your situation. Not knowing how much money you're reporting every year, how much time we have to 73.
Right.
The younger you are, the better. The less you have to take out to get as much out as you can. What I'll say is, you want to get out as much as you can within a reasonable 24% or lower tax bracket. So if we can get all of it out, some people we can. If we have a lot of years to go, 60-year-old, I just retired, I'm not touching my money for a while, I got a great pension. Let's do Roth conversion for over a 13-year period. You can do that. So it really depends on your situation.
So there's
Ideally, I'd want all my money in Roth, right? But
That's what
sometimes
you're
you
saying.
can't.
But there's no advantage to having money in just an IRA to buy a beach house or something like that. And
If you want to make the beach house 24% more than what it would cost you, because think about it, nobody uses your IRA. That's a great question, the point this gentleman just made. I have clients call all the time, hey, I'm going to do reconstruction on my house. I think I'm going to take $100,000 out of my 401k and I'm going to do that. I'm like, are you nuts? That's probably the worst advice I could ever give you. Because you take $100,000 out of your 401k, and assuming you're over 59 and a half, so there's no penalty, you're going to pay income taxes on that $100,000. So you just made that $100,000 renovation cost you $124,000. So that's the worst place to go for large distributions. So if we can have as much money as possible in a Roth, then taxes don't matter. And let me ask you a couple other things, other benefits about having Roth income versus regular IRA income. How is Medicare premiums paid, taxes paid? Your Medicare premiums are based on how much income you're reporting, right?
Yes.
RMDs count as income. Distributions from a Roth don't count as income. Distributions to your kids when they take the money out doesn't count against their taxes. So there's a lot of other benefits of getting money into a tax-free environment versus staying in a tax-deferred environment. For younger kids, a lot of the 401ks that are out there today have Roth versions. Now, if the company only offers a match on the regular, you do the match up to the regular because you're getting free money on the match. then take the rest of your contribution and do Roth. If they don't offer a match, move it all to Roth. I would move it all to Roth.
Question back.
One more, yes, sir.
But taking $100,000 from IRA, you would pay same taxes whether you buy a house with it or put to Roth. The taxes would be the same, no?
Yeah, but when my Roth's gonna grow to later on, tax-free. I'm saying if we're gonna take it out of a regular IRA to buy a house, that 100,000 just cost you 124. I'm buying a house with it. I'm talking about Roth converting or doing a tax planning on your retirement plan that you're gonna use for tax-free income. There might be other ways to buy that house. If it's a second home, or if it's a home renovation, maybe I'm doing a home equity line of credit to do that. It's not costing me 125 to get 100.
The taxes you're paying today is the same.
That's right, and the tax rates are the lowest they're gonna be that I think, and the accountants I work with, today's the lowest tax bracket we're gonna be in the rest of our lives. Definitely you guys. Tax rates by the time you're retiring, forget it. They're gonna be astronomical. One more question, and then again, jot them down and I'll answer afterwards. One more.
So what's your take, if you have 401 right now, can you transfer some of it to your Roth IRA
Yeah.
and then keep it safe, and then gradually just keep on moving it?
Yeah, so that's what we do every day. If you have a 401k right now, we open up a Roth IRA and we do Roth conversions. That's what we do every day. Depends on your situation. So we're going to talk, Luke's going to come up and do some market volatility, but I'll be remiss to not address what happened today in the stock market, right? So we had a new administration, the gentleman mentions Trump. I'm not getting political in here, whether you like him or don't like him. He was just different than the past administration that we had. What he's trying to do is level the playing field. Our country gets devastated by importing goods from other countries who charge tariffs on us. So we take tariff money or we get goods from other countries, they charge us a fee. And they charge us more than we charge them. So he's trying to level the playing field. Okay, whether you agree with that or not, I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is when he implemented it yesterday at 4 o'clock after the market closed, the markets don't like uncertainty, okay? And they don't like when things get radically changed very quickly. And that's what happened today. They got declared, they got put in place last night, now they're in force. The markets reacted negatively today, and over time, they're gonna rebound and come back. This playbook happened in his first term. He did the same exact thing. Put tariffs in place, the market went down, then he had 3 great years in the market. The markets were great. The markets don't care who's in office. The past administration, last 4 years, we had 3 really good years in the market, 1 down year. Trump's 4 years, 3 really good markets and 1 down year. Obama, Clinton, Bush, same thing. The markets don't care. The markets don't like uncertainty. And right now there's a little uncertainty. It's going to clear up. It's going to clear up. And I said to you before, you know how many phone calls we got today with 325 families that we serve? 2. If you're invested in your portfolio with too much risk and you're worried about it and you didn't look at your accounts today, then that means you have way too much risk in your portfolio and you need to do something about it, because Luke will come up and talk about investing in retirement and what market volatility is all about, and then I'll wrap up and then we'll go on from there, okay? So we'll talk about it, and if you have any questions about it, jot them down. I'll answer them afterwards. All right. Oh, we'll talk about inflation too. Inflation, real quick, is the hidden tax, right? We talk about inflation being, 3.7%. I actually think it's a lot higher than that. You go for a steak, you go for gas, whatever, groceries. It's way higher than that. We're living longer. At a 6% inflation rate, if you live 30 years in retirement, because we're living longer, your expenses are going to double every 8 years at a 6% inflation rate. So if your expenses are right now $4,000 a month, 8 years from now they're going to be $8,000 a month. 8 years after that they're going to be $16,000 a month, based on a 6% inflation rate. So if you're not factoring in inflation in your retirement income plan, you're making a mistake about that too. And we have ways to solve that and fix that problem as well. How to get guaranteed increasing income streams throughout your retirement life. That's another thing that we go over at DPS Advisors. Okay, so now we'll talk about market volatility. Sorry about that, Luke. You're good.
Thank you, Dad. Market volatility and how it could potentially affect you guys when you're approaching or in retirement. So investing in retirement is totally different than investing while you're working. When you're working, you're receiving an income and you can afford to be aggressive with your investments, and you should be. When you're getting closer to retirement and you're about 5 years out, that's when you want to start shifting to a more conservative portfolio. Once you're in retirement, you really need to worry about market volatility because you can't afford to take money out of your IRA in the RMD and afford to take losses in the market. Once you're 73 and RMDs are due and you haven't done any Roth conversions, that RMD doesn't care if the stock market is down and you still need to take money out by December 31st. So let's look at an example of how a loss could affect you. If you lose 10% in your portfolio, it's going to take you 3.6 years at a 3% return to get back to even. At a 6% return, it's going to take almost 2 years. In 2022, both stocks and bonds were down. Has everyone here heard of the 60-40 balanced portfolio, 60% stocks, 40% bonds? Well, that portfolio was down 25% in 2022 because the concept that stocks and bonds have an inverse relationship is a lie. Bonds are affected by interest rates. And in 2022, the Federal Reserve started raising interest rates, causing bond values to go down. And that 60-40 balanced portfolio got hammered. So if you lose 20% in your portfolio and you're now a conservative investor because you're in retirement, it's going to take you 7.5 years at a 3% return to get back to even. With the RMD being taken out on top of that, it's going to be impossible to do. So let's look on the next slide. We have another example. If you start with $100,000 and you lose 10%, that leaves you with $90,000, and you need an 11.1% return to get back to $100,000. You may think because you lost 10% that a 10% gain will get you back to even, but unfortunately that's not how it works. If you lose 25%, that leaves you with $75,000, and you need a 33.3% return to get back to $100,000. Which means you'd have to take a crazy amount of risk to get that kind of return. So you just really need to watch out for market volatility in retirement. And there's just one more chart I want to show you guys. I know the font is very small, it's tough to see, but this chart is showing a $1 million IRA from 2000 to 2009 with 4% distributions taken out and losses in the market. At the end of the period, this person's left with $480,000. So what happens if you live 25 years in retirement? Because people are just living longer nowadays, not shorter. So your investment philosophy in retirement needs to be completely different than your philosophy while you're working. It needs to change.
All right, good job, Luke. So why does it affect people in retirement more than it affects younger people? Like you guys want market volatility. You want market volatility because you're buying stuff, you're investing, you're buying shares when they're lower, you're building your portfolio. Well, what happens at 73 years old when I have that $1 million IRA? Let's say you had a $1 million IRA on December 31st, 2021. That's how how the RMD is calculated? On December 31st of that year, the IRS gets reported what your value of your IRA was. And that determines what your distribution is going to be in 2022. It's about 4% that first year. So $40,000 out of that $1 million IRA. Your broker has you in a 60-40 balanced portfolio. You think you're safe, 40% of your portfolio is not going to go down. Well, in 2022, that portfolio was down 25% because interest rates rose, bonds came down, markets were down. So you lost $250,000 of your $1 million IRA in the market value, and then you had to do a $40,000 RMD. That now you're down to $710,000, and that's your first year in retirement. Think about that. 1 year in retirement, you're down to $710,000. Almost 30% of your portfolio is gone, and we're living 30 years in retirement. So investing with the same investment philosophy in retirement or when you're about to retire is another huge mistake. I can't tell you how many people come into our office and we ask you to bring your statements with us because we'll do a free analysis. I'll talk to you about that in a second. We're going to analyze what you have. And they come in from one of the big box firm statements and they're really proud. I got my $1 million IRA. It's got stocks, it's got bonds, it's got actually mostly funds, funds, bonds, 60-40, and we do the analysis, and I'm like, you guys understand how much risk you're taking? You're taking the same amount of risk when you were working, when you were 45, 50 years old, as you are now at 65, 70 years old. You never changed your risk philosophy. All you did was move some money to bonds. Bonds isn't a safe investment. Bonds aren't safe. Bonds are in the world of Wall Street. They have interest rate risk. Stocks have market risk. Bonds have interest rate risk. Every investment in Wall Street has some sort of risk. So what we do with DPS Advisors, you might remember I talked on the TV show before we started, we have this 3 investment world discussion. And we divide your assets up. You need to have some money in banks for emergency funds. You need to have some money in guaranteed returns, safe money growth products that can't go down because of the market, so that you're not all invested because your broker told you having it all in Wall Street in stocks and bonds is safe. It's not. Have some of your money in products that can't go down no matter what's going on in the market. And then have money in the market for play checks, like dividend producing portfolio to create some extra income, and then have a fourth bucket to have growth because we're living longer. That bucket I'm not going to touch for 10, 15 years. I don't care what happens. If today's happens in the market, that bucket I'm not changing because I'm not touching it for 15 years. So when we split up your assets into multiple buckets and each bucket has its own purpose, you don't make panic decisions. That's why I got 2 phone calls today, and both of them they were busting my chops about how fun is your day today. That's what it was about, because our clients are invested in the risk tolerance that's right for them. And if you're afraid to look at your statements on a day like today, or you're panicking and thinking, I gotta jump, I gotta do something, I'm gonna go to cash, you're making a huge mistake. You're taking too much risk in your portfolio, and whoever your current advisor is not really advising you. You need to have a risk tolerance that fits you, not me, him, or Luke. When you come into our office, we have tools that we use that can measure with a risk score calculator. 1, your money's all in cash. 75 is the S&P 500 if you're mimicking those returns. If you have all your money in Amazon stock, it's in the 90s. So we'll run your assets through our tools, and it'll give you a risk number. But before we do that, I ask you, what do you think you are? And almost everybody says, I'm a moderate investor. 50s. My risk score is going to be a 50. Okay. I need about a week to get the reports back. Come back, 72, 79. They're taking way too much risk. They don't even know it. Having a stock and bond portfolio does not make you a 30 or 40 risk score. So we have tools that'll measure that. And when you can make a decision knowing what you actually have and what's best for you, it's not what's best for me or him, it's what's best for you. And that's what we do every day at DPS Advisors. So we're going to wrap up. We're a little early, actually. So maybe we'll take some questions. So what's next, right? We sat here, we talked about 4 different topics that affect everybody in this room. You each said you had a tax-deferred account that was probably your biggest investment. You also said that neither your current advisor or accountant is talking to you about tax planning. We talked about Social Security. We talked about market volatility. We're offering, because we use libraries, that's our motto, we educate and empower people. We're offering everybody in this room. Our office is right in Roseland on Eisenhower Parkway, right by 280. There's 3 buildings there. We're in the first building. You come in for a 45-minute, however long you want to make it, and talk about what's going on in your current situation. If you want us to run the numbers on the tax bill calculator, see what your taxes are in your IRA. You know, you came here for a reason, not to come listen to some short, fat Italian guy in a hot room who served me nothing. You came here for a financial reason when you got that invitation off of Facebook. We talk about no stress, stress-free environment. You come in, you know, I'm doing this a really long time. We're not forcing anybody to do anything. We'll talk to you about what's going on in your situation. If we can help you, we'll tell you. That's what a fiduciary does. If we can't, I'll tell you that too. That's what a fiduciary does. It's free. It's no obligation. And I don't care how much analysis we do, how many meetings we have, you will never be stressed to make a decision to work with us. Ever. I've been doing this way too long. We'll never force anybody to do anything. So with that, I'll answer some questions. If you don't have any questions you want to get going, Sue and Luke and Ted will be out there. They'll register you if you want to take advantage of it. You want to come in for 45 minutes, an hour, whatever you want to do. They have our calendar. Hopefully we'll see you. We'll see you in the office. Stress-free. Yes, ma'am.
At which point in someone's life, right, the 60-40 is a bad idea? At which point closer to retirement?
I think it's a bad idea no matter how old you are.
Really?